Today we're up in the Beartooth Mountains, and I decided to paint this incredible scene. I'm in Custer National Forest, and a place like this is just like heaven to me. This is, of course, in Montana. It's a bit of a ride back here. Took me about, well, took me a few days to get out here to Montana, but then a couple hours to get back to where I am now. But it's absolutely gorgeous. And just starting out with some ultramarine blue. Yeah, I'm doing this because the scene is overall cool. And I really like the arrangement of these trees in front of this mountain. Gonna change it up a little bit. But my main objective in this whole thing is gonna be trying to capture the feel of the height of the mountains. And the first thing you wanna do is when you're composing, bring those mountains right up to the top of your canvas. A lot of people make the mistake when they paint mountains, and I see, my students do this, is that they'll paint the mountain tops down here instead of up here. And they're not going to feel high that way. And a lot of that's just because I think we're so used to just taking photographs and painting from photos, and that's it. But the problem with that is, especially if you're using a landscape, a wide angle lens, so-called landscape lens, I think they're personally kind of atrocious for landscapes, but if you're using one of those, it's going to squish down anything that's vertical. And so when you're here like I am in person painting these mountains, they just tower above you. But when you photograph them and you get home and you look at the photograph, they don't seem that big. So I always recommend that if you're going to paint mountains, if you want, the biggest thing about mountains is that they're tall. They feel big, and if you want to retain that big feeling, lower your horizon line, have it be fairly low to the ground, and my horizon line's right about here, and everything else is going to tower above that. So I have a basic composition sketched out. I'm going to play with it a little bit more. And just a glorious day out here. There's hardly a cloud in the sky, which is so nice. Sometimes you get up in these mountain areas and there are just tons of clouds everywhere, but there's really hardly any clouds at all, just a couple small ones floating around here and there. Another thing I'm doing is I'm trying to arrange this footing. So this tree is going to be a little closer to us. The footing's going to be a little closer than this tree. Just this helps establish a feeling of three-dimensionality and depth. Challenge with these scenes is it's so bright out here that I'm having a hard time even registering the colors on my palette. And there might be some glare. If there is, I apologize for that. But even if there is glare, hopefully you will find this video helpful anyway. There is a campsite not far from here, so we are going to have some traffic occasionally, but it'll be nice. Maybe it'll keep the bears away. Kind of exciting to run into a bear, but just hope if it happens, my painting's almost finished. If I leave this world at the hands of a grizzly bear, at least I'd like to leave behind a nice painting for everybody. So I think actually my paintbrushes are part of what's causing the glare on here. Somewhat. There is a rock behind me. Might also be part of the problem. I don't want to paint these trees. I assume they're probably spruce trees. I don't want to paint them exactly how they are in life. I want to make them a little more abstract, a little more interesting. A couple reasons for that. First of all, I just think it looks better, and it still gets across what they are. And the other thing is it saves on time too. I'm actually going to add a third one in here. If you're new to my channel, if you could subscribe, that would be awesome. Or if you've been watching for a while and you have not subscribed, that would be great. It's helps me to continue making these videos. Tells YouTube people like the videos, so they keep me from being ousted into oblivion. And gives me some encouragement too. And if you could, if you like the video, hit the like button below. Okay, so I have these darks laid down and I'm fairly pleased with this. I can paint over, you know, these darks imply some of the details and things like that later. Main thing was just to get those values in there. Now, a lot of people, when they paint, they start with the sky first and they move their way to the foreground. And those of you who have watched my videos before know that I usually like to go in the reverse, and it's really important for a scene like this because the two main objectives of this scene is I want to capture the feeling of the height of the mountain and the distance of the mountain too, how far back it is, and get those beautiful blues that are in there. And if you start with the sky up there, you know, we're looking higher up here than we would be if we were in the east. And so this sky's going to be darker up here, but there would be a tendency to make it too dark and that's going to throw all your values off because there's only you can only go so dark in the foreground. So I like to get my darkest darks in first, and then it helps me gauge everything. Plus, I'm going to focus a little more on showing the cooler blues of this mountain. Is if I started with the mountain, which is what I would have did in the past, there are subtle warms in there, and painting the mountain first, I'd probably paint those warms too warm, and then I would lose the feeling of depth. So I like to start with the foreground and then work my way back. Also, tell you my colors really quick. We have titanium white. This is nickel yellow. It's like nickel yellow to titanate or something like that. It's made by Gamblin. I like to use that when I go out west because it's a very cool, subdued yellow, and it really helps push things back. This is cadmium yellow light, cadmium orange, yellow ochre, transparent red oxide, alizarin, crimson, ultramarine blue, cobalt blue, cerulean blue, viridian, and chromium green oxide. And over here I have Gamblin's, hopefully my brush isn't in the way, this is Gamblin's Portland Gray Warm. And this is a really nice color for showing the sunlit side of the mountains. It's almost a gimme color, if you will. So next thing I want to do is I want to get in the foreground, the yellows here. Actually, kind of a green, but they're going to be where I want my warmest colors. That's a little too green or a little too yellow. I'm going to grab a little bit of that Portland gray. It's also important when you're painting a scene like this is to constantly squint at it so that you're looking at the whole thing and not just looking at the ground or looking at the mountains and things like that. You guys have heard me say this before. The most important thing you can capture when you're doing this is the relationships between your foreground, your trees, your mountain, and your sky. If you get the overall relationships correct without any detail, then you're going to go home with some good information that you can then combine with the photograph to make a convincing painting. Because the one thing you're not going to get from a photograph in most cases is accurate value and color relationships. The photograph is going to throw those off, or just be inaccurate, period. So getting those overall relationships accurate out here is ultra important. Details you can get later from the photo. But getting back to squinting, the reason why you want to squint is because you're going to be looking at the whole scene. And I'm talking squinting at the scene when you look at it, not so much squinting at your painting. But you're going to look at the whole scene, and it's going to help you see, when you see the whole scene, see those relationships versus trying to zero in on detail. There are some rocks and things like that in there. I'll get those in a little later if I feel like it. Hopefully I'm not breathing heavy into the microphone. I tend to be a bit of an open mouth breather when I'm doing this, just because it's kind of an intense thing for me. And problem is when I do that, then I sound like Darth Vader with a tracheotomy. If you watched some of my videos from when I was out in Wyoming last September, I sounded like I had emphysema or something like that. So hopefully I'm not doing that here. Some people ask, you know, they complain about the music that I put in my videos from out in Wyoming. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I was trying to cover up my pathetic breathing. But I guess people would rather hear me breathe based on the comments than hear the music. Okay, so now I'm going to start to build in here with the cooler greens. Actually, I think I want to switch to a different brush here. Really trying to gauge that color and value. I want, as I said before, get the relationship between this and that. Both color and value relationship. And I'm not totally sure yet which color combination is going to get me there. So I'm really trying to leave out any detail, and I'm strictly just thinking color and value, color and value. And I'm not going to be able to gauge this perfectly until I get most of the white of my canvas covered. But you have to start somewhere. And that's another thing with doing the foreground first. These tones back here are fairly ambiguous. Whereas the tone of the trees, I was pretty confident on what that was. That's why I put those in first, so I could have something I could confidently measure from. Constantly squinting at the scene. I know if I start looking at that mountain on its own, it's just, I'm going to completely lose all sense of aerial perspective. with the exception of an occasional car driving by, it's so peaceful back here you can't hear any sounds of civilization. Okay, I know I'm gonna have to make some adjustments to that, but I think it's in pretty good shape. I want to get that blue sky in there. It's a fairly intense blue. And a little darker in value than what I'm used to seeing. So getting that in there is going to help me gauge the other values. That's a little too dark. I was going to say, if you want to help support my channel, I have a Patreon account set up. You can click on that below and you make a monthly contribution, and that really helps me with things like the extra canvas, camera equipment, extra paint, the video editing equipment, and just the time I put into editing videos and things like that. It's time where I could just be painting, but I like teaching, I like doing this, I like recording this, and also just the time. Ooh, I just had a bee on me on my leg, and dealing with possible bee stings. I think I'm gonna have to pause it and get this bee away from me. looks like he might have went away. Sorry about that. Got some strange bee. Landed right on my leg and was crawling around. That was weird. I used to be allergic to bee stings. I don't know if I am anymore. When I was a kid, apparently I was. So last thing I want to be is up here in the mountains by myself and find out that I still am allergic to bee stings. But anyway, just the gas, rental car, all that stuff, especially for a trip like this. A lot of investment in this. And what I'll do too is a thank you for those who do become supporters, depending on your level. I'm going to give away one of my plein air sketches per month. It's going to be unframed, but it'll be one of my original sketches. I don't give away my studio paintings, and I'm not going to, just for full disclosure, give away, I don't think, any of the paintings I'm doing here out west. And the reason why is because I regrettably do not live out west. I would love to, but I do not. That's a long story. Can barely afford to come out west now. Is unbelievable rental cars. Cheapest I could find was $118 a day. But anyway, I don't give away my western paintings just because I use them for my historical Native American scenes, and because I can't just come out west and get another one, I need them. But anything from the east on, a lot of those you see me doing on this channel, I will be doing a drawing. So you get entered into a drawing if you become a Patreon supporter, and you might win a one of my sketches. It's not the main reason I do it, but it's just a way to thank you for supporting me and all the extra time, effort, and cost that goes into this. But whether you support me or not, I thank you either way. But if you do want to support me, click on the link below in the description, and that will take you to where you can make a contribution. Okay, so sky is blocked in. Now I can start to make some adjustments to these values here. As I look at it, I think I might not be done with the sky yet. I think I need to go even lighter. I made the mistake of just staring at the sky in and of itself, but I'm seeing now that, hey, stupid beast keeps getting around me. Get out of here. I think this might be one of those mason bees that don't sting. I certainly hope so. I have to find bee repellent or something if they make such a thing. Don't know why he's bothering me. I'm not aware of any nest around here. A lot of deer flies around here too. I stopped in Minnesota to see family, and you probably saw that in one of my previous videos, and the bugs were just relentless there. I was hoping Montana, it's been very dry here, I was hoping it'd be a little more little nicer, but insect wise. Okay, so this blue sky is super intense, but I'm not going to be able to capture the intensity and the proper value relationships in conjunction with the mountains. There's just some things that nature can do that you can't do. So I just shifted the sorry, I can't talk right now. Just shifted the value of the sky a little bit. Got so many bugs going around me. I feel like I'm under attack here. Plein air painting is not for the light of heart, that's for sure. Or the faint of heart, I guess is the correct term. Just did a little trick that I learned from Scott Christensen, where you look at the scene with your head tilted upside down. And doing that, you can, it helps you to see everything from kind of a fresh perspective and see where your colors might and values might be off. Step back, take a look at it from a distance. Okay, this needs to go a little redder. Still got these bees and flies landing around me. This one bee apparently wants to form some kind of symbiotic relationship with me. It's a little too light in value. I'm using the Gamlen's Portland Gray and mixing it with some white and Viridian. Need to go even darker. I think I'm going to switch to a palette knife. I know I have not been quite as talkative here. You'll have to forgive me, but I'm just really intense on getting this down. In this mountain, there's so many subtle grays going on, and a lot of judgment calls one has to make in order to capture the effect of what you're seeing. Also, for those of you who are interested, I teach live online painting classes. Do it through Zoom. We meet 4 Saturdays a month, usually. Sometimes I have to, once in a while I have to switch it to a weekday, but when I come out west anyway, because I can only do it from my studio. But I take you over a 4-week period of time through a painting, step by step, pretty much stroke by stroke. And we go a lot slower than this, of course. And I tell you, all the colors I'm mixing, all the theory behind it, a lot of stuff that I just cannot do out here in the field because of time. And also, to be honest, this is for free, so when I have to put a lot of extra time into something, I need to pay my bills for it. But anyway, it's definitely worth it. If you're serious about taking your painting to the next level, take all levels, take beginners, and even some more advanced artists who feel they reach a plateau. I have an advanced version of the course too for those that more advanced artists would like. All the sessions are recorded, so if you can't make a session, no big deal. You can go back and watch it as many times as you like, as long as you continue your membership. We also have a live Q&A and critique session where I can give you feedback on other paintings you've done. We open the doors once a month, just because we spend the month working on a painting. You don't want to come halfway in and we're already done with a lot of the painting. But it's a lot of fun. A lot of my students have stuck around since the beginning. Seating is limited, so if you sign up, sorry, I had another bee around me. The bees just love me up here. Don't know why. But anyway, if you're interested, sign up on the waiting list, and if the spot opens up, I'll let you know. And you can join. But I do recommend you only sign up if you're really interested. If you're really serious, I should say. I used to teach bass guitar, and I had a number of students. You could always tell the ones that were serious and the ones who were not, because the ones who were serious would actually work on what I recommended, and the ones who were not serious did not, and didn't go too far. That was also the same thing when I was in music school. I noticed that. But anyway, if you're serious and you'd like to try it out, I'd love to have you there. I'm kind of altering the way this looks, this mountain. I want to put it a little more in shadow. This is being recorded in late June, so the sun is pretty much at its highest point in the sky. As a result, then, a lot of the shadows are not quite what they would be if I were doing this, say, in September. Now, when you're looking at these mountains further back, you're going to see some greens in there, and there's going to be a temptation to want to just dive right into a cadmium yellow or something like that. Don't do that. Sneak up on those greens. Start with Viridian, and a lot of times that's all you're going to need. If you start with some intense yellow-green, it's going to completely kill the depth back there. So sneak up on it with a Viridian. And if you need to darken and neutralize the Viridian back there, I would recommend a cool red such as alizarin, not a warm red like cadmium red. Okay, I'm just gonna step back. It's always good. I'm about 10 feet from my canvas. Might not be too exciting for you, but gives me a chance to really look at that from a distance and see what we got. Okay, I'm going to play with the sky a little bit more. There's such a beautiful intensity up there of color that I just can't go crazy with because of the value situation. But I'm going to see if I can just go with some little darker, more intense strokes of color up in here toward the top, just to mimic some of that intensity of color that I'm seeing. Skies, if you watch some of my other videos, they're not just one straight color. They lighten as they go down to the horizon, but as they go up, they can get even darker. And just want to try to mimic that the best I can while I'm out here. It is just incredible being here. I got fairly abstract with this, with these mountains. Which I don't apologize for one bit. Might have to move my whole easel because the sun keeps creeping this way. Okay, I think I'm going to clean up my palette and jump back to the foreground here for a little bit. Okay, so we move the easel a bit. Kind of want to get rid of some of those intense blues. It's almost a little too much there. Okay, so I'm going to mix up some of that dark green for the foreground trees. Using a palette knife because I want a nice amount of this. I'm just amazed I've not been stung yet. I keep feeling these bugs landing on me. And I know some of them have got to be those bees. I'm bringing the darks of these trees over some pretty thick paint that I had built up with these background mountains. So I have to go even thicker with what I'm laying down. And this is how a lot of paintings by different artists end up really thick. It's not, I'm fully convinced that it's not something that's done totally on purpose just for the sake of having thick paint. It's just constant adjustments and things like that you can either scrape the paint off or you can build it up. And the longer you paint, the more confident you get with your technique, the more able you are to build the paint up instead of scraping. And that's when painting gets really fun, but it takes a while to get there. So if you're not there yet, don't get frustrated. I used to think that, you have to paint thick just for the sake of painting thick, and that's completely false. At least I think it is. Maybe some other artists paint thick just for that alone. And I do have to kind of take that back myself, because I do I do some a thing called Western Impressionism, where I take coal wax, mix it with oil paint, and I do paintings of Native Americans in a very loose, impressionistic, almost abstract style. And with the coal wax medium, you can really build the paint up super thick. I do it on a on cradle wood panel, just because if I didn't, that paint would crack within a week as thick as I do it. And that is for the sake of going thick, but I'm also not trying to do realism there. I'm convinced that a lot of artists who do realism who end up thick, they just do it just because of constant adjustments that they're making. So if you're not there yet with thick paint, you know, just keep going, you'll get there. But don't feel you have to paint thick just because that's going to make a better painting, because it doesn't. If that's your style, and if that's your voice, going thick, it looks good, then yeah, paint thick. But don't feel like, you know, oh, because I'm not painting thick, my stuff isn't good. And I only say that because maybe that hasn't been a problem with hardly any of you out there, but it used to be an issue with me. So I just want to spare you guys the mistakes that I have made over the years. And that's where good training, having a good teacher, and that can help, because boy, I know if I had sought instruction earlier than I did, I would have been a lot further along even than what I am now, and I've been doing this for like 20 years. I know a lot of artists, and I used to think this too, like, oh, I just go it on my own, that's all I need to do, just paint all the time. And you do need to paint all the time. You can't expect a teacher to on his or her own to make you better. That's not going to happen either. It's completely unrealistic. But a combination of a good teacher and diligent practice and effort, you do that, you're going to go somewhere. And I will say this, it's the diligent practice that's the most important. And so if you do that, you know, you're probably eventually going to get somewhere, but it will take you a lot longer. But just getting a good teacher, like if you sign up for my workshops and you just think, okay, because I signed up for this guy's workshops, I'm just going to become better automatically. That's false. And if that's your thinking, don't sign up for my workshops, please. Don't sign up for anyone's workshops. You're just wasting your money and that person's time. That'd be like saying, you know, I'm going to become a great football player because I'm on so-and-so's football team, but I'm not going to practice. Just being on this football team automatically makes me better. And, well, you won't be on that team for long. Oops. Make sure my sound is good. Yep. I'm still working with a wired microphone. Just one of the reasons why I'm looking for Patreon support. Love to get a wireless, but can't really afford it. I know my YouTube channel does have videos, but trust me, they don't pay a squat for having videos. Especially at this stage in the game. If I had like 1 million viewers, then yeah, I'd be fine, but that's not the case. And I don't think it will be the case for quite a while. Kind of baffles me, some of these like kids, 6-year-old kids who play with toys on YouTube and they're making like billions of dollars. And delicately putting some of these tree highlights in. I want to make sure that they're a little darker and warmer than the ground plane greens. And I want to make sure that there's not too many. Do want to thank you for watching. We're kind of on the home run stretch here. I have not been stung yet, which is good. Breeze is picking up a little bit. It's a beautiful sound now. If you can ever get up here to paint, I highly recommend it. Once again, we're in Montana in the Beartooth Mountains in Custer National Forest. And if you haven't done so, if you could subscribe to my channel if you've watched this long, unless you just fast forwarded to the end. But if you watch this long, you probably like what you're seeing, so you can see more. I'm going to try to post every week. I decided to change the footing on that tree, as you can see there. Putting in some accents of rocks and things like that. Some color notes. That went too neutral there. Okay, I think we're going to call that a painting. Thanks for watching.